Good morning, good morning. I'm so glad y'all are here because that is a hot mess out there. I am Jennifer Bacmeister. I am a member of Butman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church in Jacksonville. I am a lay leader there. I am probably the second senior worship leader at this point. Been there a long time, since '99. And this is my presentation. Y'all need to see that picture. I'm going to step over. I love this wireless business. This is nice. Oh, okay. Well, I want everybody to have a chance to see the picture. Can everybody see the picture? This is my sewing room. This is my sewing room, also known as my happy place, or the hoard, or to my husband and sons, the room where you must never touch any of the scissors. I don't care how many of them are in there. It's my own personal mental health retreat. It's right next to the kitchen. Good place to have a retreat. And it's a mess. I'm not lying about that. I'd like to say it's because of the speed and the earnestness of my recent mask making endeavors. But truthfully, if you'd been there 3 years ago, it would have looked just like that. There isn't a big change. For those who know me, this room of my house always surprises them. It is not typical of me. I am the woman whose spice racks are in alphabetical order, whose linen closet experiences towel rotation, and I firmly believe a place for everything and everything in its place. T-shirts and blouses do not intermingle in my closet, but there's something about my sewing room. I won't lie, I don't know where everything is. Fabric is in piles, not by type or by length. It's piles, just lots of neatly folded piles, but most of that's just to keep me from getting trapped under a collapse. It has nothing to do with organization. Patterns are mingled in with worn jeans that I think I might make a quilt someday out of. Not yet. Half-finished craft projects lurk in drawers and on shelves that are under the cutting table, and they're so full of stuff that I can't tell you what's there until I move something else out of the way. I own 5 sewing machines. 2 of which are currently in use, but all 5 of them are in that room. Most people don't see how I get anything done in that space. It's chaotic. And if it wasn't my room, I would totally agree with them. The strange thing is despite this lack of order that's so prevalent in the entire rest of my life, I get a lot done. I shrug off the stress of the day. I slip into my projects easily. Solutions for problems that I backburnered simmer up to the top without any apparent effort. Time melts away and I am in the zone. So, is my creativity driven by the mess, or is the mess a result of my creativity? June Wu, a computer programmer who became an author, talks about this very paradox in her blog. When she was a programmer, before she had a child, her household was very orderly and very neat. She found the act of cleaning similar to her programming work. It was, as she says, a series of easily repeatable tasks arranged in a logical, interdependent manner. Now that she is a writer with a small child in the house, she finds she thrives on chaos, which she will freely admit is not just because there's a toddler in the house. Scattered toys remind her of her tumbled dreams, which then become the basis for a new article. Dirty dishes piled up in the kitchen cause her to reflect on what was happening when those dishes were full of food, which in turn inspires her to write and share her stories. It took her a while to understand why her writing was more prolific, even better when she had a messy house. June writes, "When I understand this creative process, I can see that having large changes in inputs can generate exponentially more ideas than having small changes in inputs. Therefore, when I look at my messy room, the mess is sensory input that my brain needs to generate new ideas. If the sensory input differs infinitely from day to day, then my brain will generate infinitely more creative ideas. This explains why the inspirations generated from looking at my messy room often result in high-quality articles." June is able to control the chaos she needs to foster her creativity. She chooses to leave part of her home messy and allows herself an area to make a mess in because she recognizes it's part of her process. Now, June and I might be twins, separated at birth and maybe 25 years. She discovered that while orderliness promotes emotional well-being, chaos promotes creativity. And Mother Nature knows all about controlled chaos. Roaring rivers carry nutrients and sediment to new locations. Volcanoes and earthquakes shift the soil, giving the landscape an entirely new profile. The churning of the planet contributes to the continuity of life. If I scatter flower seeds out on the unprepared ground, very few of them will grow. The seeds become easy targets for birds, and the remaining seeds don't have an environment that allows them to take root and thrive. But if I till the ground first, if I take the current state of the ground and I churn it up and then scatter my seeds, their futures are far more certain. In our day-to-day lives, we seem to innately recognize the chaos and creativity link. When the current order of the world no longer satisfies our needs, we look to people who can see a new way forward. We value those who think outside the box, and we talk about breaking the paradigm. And if you break it, you buy a new one. That's all I've got to say about that. We continuously strive to set aside the old ways and create new vistas. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato said, "A need or problem encourages creative efforts to meet the need or solve the problem." Since nobody talks like Plato did, we now say, necessity is the mother of invention. But a need or problem encourages the creative efforts to meet the need or solve the problem. Let's think about this. Where do needs and problems come from? Change. It doesn't mean change is bad. It is, after all, what you make of it. Change is eternal, it's constant, it's unavoidable. My wise father, who always gives me excellent advice, tells me change is inevitable, except from a vending machine. Happy changes, like new relationships or sudden successes, can be unforeseen. And those changes are generally considered positive, like ones that you work for, promotions, achieving a long-term personal goal. But they still affect change in your life. Still change. And even a series of changes over a reasonable period of time is manageable for most folks. When multiple significant changes happen in your life over a short period of time, one right on top of the other, Plato and his Greek friends give that a fancy label. They call it chaos. This isn't just the unopened mail on the kitchen counter. This isn't your teenager's unkept room. When you can't control what's going on or predict the next disaster, that's chaos. Chaos is change on a grand scale. It is a state in which chance seems to rule supreme. Small changes may affect some of our resources. A new job might change how much time you have to spend with a loved one, or even how much money you can save. A new home may change how long it takes you to get to work, or make convenient shopping more expensive. Full-blown chaos, on the other hand, affects all of our resources. Chaotic change takes your resources and shuffles them around. Some resources disappear or become unattainable to you. Change can also bring new resources into your life, although they might be hard to identify in the beginning. During chaos, the massive, instantaneous, simultaneous shifting of your resources forces us to re-examine our values and our priorities. Our day-to-day mindlessness, the comfort of routine, is no longer a luxury. You may be forced to examine your life and your choices in a light that is unfamiliar, or at the very least, uncomfortable. In a time when you need your most prized resources of family and friends, they will be dealing with the chaos as well. And that sounds terrible, doesn't it? Perspective matters, though. Let me share a story with you. I was talking to one of my more conservative friends, and somehow I let the conversation veer into climate change. Most of the time, I avoid even the mildest discussions of political issues with people who are radically different than I am, even if science is on my side. It's just not enjoyable conversation with the other side if they're just not going to be interested in facts. And I really try to avoid inviting arguments into my life. Enough of them find me without my help at all. And as far as climate change goes, I believe global warming is a human problem that will require a human solution. I believe most scientists are not pandering to politics, and we should listen to them. And I also recognize that not everyone in my social circle thinks the same way. So as this person went on about how temperatures have varied wildly over the history of the Earth, and this is just another blip on the great big chart of Earth's history, and people are such a tiny influence on the planet, I realized that my friend was living in the land of confirmation bias. My facts, no matter how accurate or scientifically vetted, would not be heard. No matter how many sources I quote or craftily that I debate, I am never going to beat the Facebook experts or the Instagram researchers. So instead, I tried to paraphrase what Neil deGrasse Tyson explained on the show Cosmos. So here's your Sunday science tidbit. When the dinosaurs and other animals and all the plant matter attendant to that era died and was buried, all that potential energy was stored. Over a long period of time, that matter was converted to petroleum, but its inherent energy remained. Now we're digging up the petroleum and we're using it and we're releasing that energy back into the world. And it's this energy that's causing heat and heat creating conditions. You're right, my friend said to me, enthusiastically agreeing with me, much to my surprise. The dinosaurs had to die so we could have oil. And it hit me, that's not entirely wrong. Buried dinosaur energy doesn't go away. It changed into something else. A meteor striking the Earth, throwing dust into the global atmosphere, and bringing the end to an era was chaotic, catastrophic. The overall sum of the equation, however, didn't change. The parts just changed their form. The energy in the form of prehistoric animals and planets became a different resource in the overall system. The equation always balances. The pattern changed, but the web was unbroken. Right now, our lives are in the midst of chaos, although it feels better than it did 2 years ago, right? Right? A little, some. The pandemic brought us chaos like most of us have never seen before. And it's not entirely gone. I know 7 people right now who have tested positive with the Rona in the last week, and thankfully none of them are likely to die from it, but it's still there. With the ongoing pandemic, the economic fallout, the boiling race tensions, abortion legislation, and another school shooting, chaos is still the order of the day. And during times like this, we are called to re-identify our needs and reallocate the resources. We need to look at our lives from an entirely different point of view. This is as individuals and as society as a whole. In order to survive, we have to embrace uncertainty in order to find that new way. But within that uncertainty, what great opportunities we have to be creative. Creativity is our tool, our enduring resource, to take a chaotic situation and craft a new and a beautiful reality. I'm a member of Toastmasters in the club that my employer sponsors. In March of 2020, they sent everybody to work from home who could possibly work from home, and we thought the club was over and done. Most of the employees working from home didn't have the technology to remotely attend a meeting. We didn't even know how to have a remote meeting. Membership dwindled down to 7 people, which is less than the international organization says is acceptable. Then something happened. Toastmasters International changed their policy to allow virtual meetings, which was not allowed before the pandemic. And that decision, obviously, was vital to their survival. The expansion of technology within my company, coupled with our leadership's new attitude of you can work from wherever you work best. Nobody has to come back to the office. Means that we've added 20 members to our club in the last 8 months. We haven't been able to grow the club that fast in the 8 years it's been around. Employees from remote locations can now attend a meeting from their work truck and never leave a job site. I spoke last week at a club that a friend of mine belongs to, and their club president is Japanese. Okay, so there's Japanese. He's in Japan, people. We met at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was 7 o'clock at night where he was, because he was in Japan. That never would have happened before the pandemic. My husband has a friend named Dave that owns a guitar repair shop in Jacksonville. When the world first shut down for the pandemic, Dave thought his business was done. He relied on professional musicians, the guys who play in the bars, the guys that play at festivals like you guys are having now, for his business. No open bars, no festivals, no business for Dave. But again, something unexpected happened. People suddenly weren't commuting, and they had time. They had time, and they stayed home, and they cleaned out their closets, and they found their old guitars. And their priorities had shifted. They remembered they wanted to play guitar, or they remembered back in the day when they played with their buddies in the garage. And now they had time. And Dave suddenly had more business than before, and he's brought a lot of forgotten guitars back to life. Arts and crafts are experiencing a boom. I have personally helped 3 people set up sewing machines that one was in a closet, one was in a storage unit, and one was under a bed. I don't know how you get a sewing machine under a bed, but they did it. Not only are we rediscovering and learning skills that make us happy, but they're skills that help others. Our Japanese Toastmaster is practicing his English in real time, and the club that he's in is learning about a culture on the other side of the world from somebody who's living it every day. Happily, the musicians are back to work, now with a new crowd of people with an appreciation for their art who are also eager to learn from them. Home sewers who drug out those machines because they wanted to make a mask. They needed to feel like they were being helpful and doing something. They now have a useful domestic skill, and they're actually help keeping the art alive. I really hope Miss D's quilt shop is open today because the hoard's not quite full yet. So perhaps chaos came because it's time for a reallocation of resources. If you accept that we are all part of a great ground of being, if this life experience that we are having is a tiny cog in a self-perpetuating, self-contained machine that is far larger than any one of us, then we cannot restrict or restrain part of that system without causing an imbalance in the rest of it. Dr. King said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Do you know what the rest of that quote is? We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. What affects one directly affects all indirectly. Hello, interdependent web of life. As far as my sewing room goes, it still feels like a safe haven against worldly chaos. In the midst of the pandemic, my sewing room was the place I could find solace. It gave me a way to be helpful to others. I made hundreds of masks. But it also gave me a place to maintain my own sanity. It took me a while to realize that I had directed my creativity into problem solving. What had been an aggravating mess is now a familiar, friendly jumble. I encourage you to ponder today. Where has your creativity helped you? What have you learned that you wouldn't have learned if not for chaos? Do you see any new patterns in your web? Growth and change are difficult and painful, but necessary. Remember, the interdependent web of existence is all around us. It will be okay. The equation always